The kitchen light was still on when my phone rang. That's the only reason I wasn't asleep. 11:47 on a Tuesday night, and I was sitting at my counter in Durham, North Carolina, eating leftover pot roast and reading a brief I had no business reading anymore because I retired from the bench 3 years ago. Old habits. 34 years as a family court judge will do that to you. You stop presiding over cases, but you never stop reading the law. The way retired surgeons still wash their hands for 3 minutes. The name on my phone was Lily, my granddaughter. She is 10 years old. I picked up before it finished the first ring. Lily? She was breathing the way children breathe when they've been holding it together for hours, and the sound of a safe voice finally breaks the seal. Short, hitching little gulps like she couldn't get enough air between them. Grandpa, she whispered. Can you come get me? I was already standing, already moving toward the hallway, where I keep my keys on a hook beside the door. Already doing the math. My house in Durham to my son Patrick's house in Raleigh. 31 miles. 40 minutes this time of night if I kept it at the speed limit, which I was not planning to do. Where are you right now? I'm in the garage. The garage. I sat on the step, she said. It's cold. Why are you in the garage, sweetheart? Because they locked my bedroom door. She said it the way you say it's raining. Just a fact. Something that happens. They said I was being difficult and I needed to think about my attitude, and then Vanessa locked it and said I could sleep out here until I learned some respect. I want to tell you what happened to my body in that moment. I'm 67 years old. I have high blood pressure, a replaced left knee, and a resting heart rate that my cardiologist describes as adequate, which I understand as Dr. 4 could be worse. I have sat on a bench and listened to testimony that would make most people physically ill. I once heard a 4-year-old describe through a forensic interviewer what her father did in the dark, and I kept my face perfectly still because that's what the job demands. You don't react. You record. You rule. My hands were shaking. Lily, listen to me carefully. Stay exactly where you are. I'm getting in my car right now. I will be there in 40 minutes. Do not call anyone else. Do not knock on any doors. Just stay on this phone with me. Okay, she said. Then, quieter, Grandpa? I'm really cold. I know, baby. 40 minutes. I need to go back a little. You need the context, or none of this will make sense the way it needs to. Welcome back to Dad's Honest Revenge. Get comfortable, grab a drink, and remember, the people in these stories had every opportunity to do the right thing. They just didn't. Subscribe. You're going to want to be here for this one. My son Patrick married his first wife, Danielle, when he was 24. Danielle was a good woman. Warm, kind, the sort of person who remembered everyone's birthday and actually meant it. They had a daughter together, Lily. Born premature at 32 weeks, spent 11 days in the NICU, came home on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was in the delivery room. I was the second person to hold her. She weighed 4 pounds and 9 ounces, and she grabbed my index finger with her entire fist, and I was finished. Done. That was my whole heart right there. Danielle died when Lily was 3. Ovarian cancer. Diagnosed late. Moved fast. She was gone in 7 months. I watched my son become a ghost. I watched him go through the motions of being alive while Lily learned to tie her shoes and read her first book and lose her first tooth. I moved from my condo in Chapel Hill to the house in Durham specifically to be closer. For 2 years, I was the one who made breakfast, who drove carpool, who sat in the front row of every preschool recital with my phone recording in one hand and a tissue in the other. Then Patrick met Vanessa. I want to be fair here. I want to be precise. Vanessa Caldwell was 31 when Patrick brought her to Sunday dinner for the first time. She was an office manager at a dental practice in Cary. She was well-dressed, polite, made good eye contact, and brought a bottle of wine that cost exactly enough to show effort without showing off. She asked about my years on the bench. She laughed at my jokes. She told Lily her shoes were cute, which they were because I'd picked them out. I wanted to like her. I tried. But 34 years of watching people perform in my courtroom teaches you something about the difference between someone who is warm and someone who is performing warmth. Vanessa had a quality I couldn't name for a long time. Eventually, I placed it. She was auditioning. Every interaction was a scene, and she was always aware of the camera. They married 14 months later. I kept my concerns to myself because Patrick was smiling again for the first time in 3 years, and Lily seemed cautiously happy. And who was I to judge a woman based on a feeling? A year after the wedding, Vanessa had a son, Jackson. And that's when the math started changing. Not overnight. Nothing dramatic ever happens overnight. It's the slow things that destroy families. The gradual redistribution of attention, of resources, of love, until one day you look up and realize the scales haven't been balanced in a very long time. I noticed it first at Thanksgiving. Lily was 8. Jackson had just turned 1. We were at Patrick's house, the new one they'd bought in Raleigh, a 4-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood called Stonewood Glen, where every house has a porch flag and a Ring doorbell and a marriage that looks perfect from the sidewalk. Lily's bedroom was on the main floor, right beside the laundry room. I asked Patrick about it casually, because in the old house, Lily had the upstairs room with the window seat that Danielle had painted lavender. Vanessa wanted Jackson upstairs near the master, Patrick said. It just made more sense with the baby. Made sense, sure. But the main floor bedroom was small, north-facing, and directly beside a dryer that ran 3 times a day. Jackson's nursery upstairs was twice the size, with south light and a mural of hot air balloons that Vanessa had commissioned from a local artist. I filed that away. I file everything away. Another thing retirement doesn't cure. By the time Lily was 9, the pattern was so clear I could have drawn it on a whiteboard. Jackson got swim lessons, gymboree, a birthday party at one of those indoor trampoline parks with 22 kids, and a custom cake shaped like a dinosaur. Lily got a store-bought cake and dinner at home. Patrick said she preferred it that way. She's low-key, Dad. She doesn't like big crowds. Lily is not low-key. Lily is the child who once organized a talent show in my backyard and charged the neighbors $1 admission and donated the proceeds to the animal shelter. She is the furthest thing from low-key. What Lily is adaptive. She learned that asking for things resulted in being told no, or worse, being told she was ungrateful, so she stopped asking. That's not preference. That's survival. Christmas last year broke something open. I came over on the 23rd. The living room was decorated beautifully. Tree, lights, garland on the banister, stockings hung on the mantle, 3 stockings. Patrick, Vanessa, Jackson. I looked at Patrick. He looked at the mantle, then at Vanessa, then at the floor. We ran out of hooks, Vanessa said. We're getting another one after Christmas. Lily was standing in the kitchen doorway. She had heard. She didn't say anything. She just turned around and went to her room. I followed her, sat on the edge of her bed. The bed had a fitted sheet and a quilt that I recognized because I'd bought it for her when she was 6. No decorations on the walls. No photos. 1 bookshelf, half empty. Jackson's room, which I'd walked past, had a teepee, a rocking horse, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and a growth chart in the shape of a giraffe. It's fine, Grandpa, Lily said before I could speak. I don't care about the stocking. You shouldn't have to not care, I said. She looked at me with those old eyes. The ones that don't belong on a 9-year-old. The ones I'd seen too many times in too many courtrooms. I know, she said, but it's easier. I went home that night and sat in my office for 2 hours. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark and thought about every case I'd ever presided over, involving the slow, quiet neglect of a child who technically had food and shelter and was technically fine. The cases where nothing was criminal and everything was wrong. Then I opened a drawer and took out a yellow legal pad. I wrote 1 word at the top, evidence, but I wasn't ready to use it yet. I kept hoping. I kept thinking Patrick would wake up, that something would break through the fog Vanessa had built around him, this careful architecture of normal that kept everyone comfortable except the one person who had no power to object. Then came Tuesday night, the phone call, the garage. I drove to Raleigh in 33 minutes. I don't recommend it. My knee was screaming by the time I got out of the car. The house on Briarwood Court was dark except for the porch light and the faint blue glow of a television upstairs. The master bedroom. They were watching TV. Their 10-year-old was sitting on a concrete step in a 40-degree garage wearing a nightgown and no shoes. I found her exactly where she said she'd be. Sitting on the step between the garage and the laundry room door, knees pulled up to her chest, my phone call still connected, the screen casting light on her face. She looked up at me and didn't cry. She was past crying. She just reached for me, and I picked her up. 67 years old, bad knee, doesn't matter. I picked her up, and she put her face against my neck, and I felt her whole body unclench. I got you, I said. We're going home. I carried her to my car. I buckled her into the back seat. I took off my coat and wrapped it around her legs. Then I went back inside. I walked through the laundry room, through the kitchen, up the stairs. I knocked on the master bedroom door. Patrick opened it in sweatpants and a Tar Heels t-shirt. His face did something complicated when he saw me. Dad. What are you? I held up my hand. One gesture, the same one I used for 34 years when an attorney was about to say something stupid in my courtroom. Your daughter, I said, was sitting in the garage, on concrete, in 40-degree weather, in her nightgown, because your wife locked her out of her own bedroom. He opened his mouth. I'm not finished. I lowered my hand. She called me at 11:47 because she had no one else to call. Not you, not her stepmother, her grandfather, 31 miles away, because the two adults in this house were upstairs watching television, while a 10-year-old sat in the cold wondering what she did wrong. Vanessa appeared behind him. Stephen, you don't understand the context. She was being disrespectful at dinner and, ma'am, I said, and I used that word with the exact temperature I used to use from the bench when I was about to hold someone in contempt. I am taking Lily to my house tonight. Tomorrow, I will be contacting an attorney. If you have any objections, I welcome you to raise them with the court. She went pale. Patrick said, Dad, come on, it's not. We just needed her to calm down. She was throwing a tantrum. I looked at him for a long time. My son. The boy I taught to ride a bike in the parking lot behind the courthouse. The boy who cried at his mother's funeral, at Danielle's funeral, at Lily's first steps. The boy who was standing in front of me, making excuses for why his daughter was in a garage. What was the tantrum about, Patrick? Silence. What was she upset about? More silence. Then, mumbled, almost inaudible. She saw the Disney trip on Vanessa's phone. I waited. We're taking Jackson to Disney World next week, he said, for his birthday. She saw the booking confirmation and got upset. Is Lily going? He didn't answer. Is Lily going? No, he said. We couldn't afford 4 tickets, and Vanessa thought. 2 words that explained everything and excused nothing. How much were the tickets, Patrick? He looked at the floor. The base package was around $6,000. $6,000 for Disney World, and you couldn't add a 10-year-old, a child whose mother died, a child who lives in the smallest room in your house beside the dryer, a child with no stocking on the mantle. I took a breath. I kept my voice level. 34 years of practice. Let me ask you something, son. If Danielle were alive, would Lily be going to Disney World? He flinched like I'd slapped him. That's all I needed to know. Lily is in my car. She will be at my house. Your attorney can reach me through mine. I turned around and walked downstairs. I did not look back. I'd spent a career knowing exactly when to leave a room, and this was the moment. Lily was asleep in the back seat when I got to the car. Wrapped in my coat, mouth slightly open, one hand curled under her chin. She looked 3 again. She looked like the baby I held in the NICU who grabbed my finger and didn't let go. I drove home at the speed limit this time. The next morning I called Josephine Barrera. Joe is 62, former family law attorney, now in private practice, and the single most effective advocate I've ever seen in a courtroom. I know this because she argued in front of me 9 times and won 8 of them. The 9th, I ruled against her because the law required it. But I told her afterward, off the record, that her closing argument was the best I'd heard in 30 years. Stephen, she said when she picked up. It's 7 in the morning. I need you to take a case. I'm retired. You're bored. I know because you called me last month to complain about your book club. Pause. What's the case? My granddaughter. Longer pause. Then, different voice entirely. Tell me everything. I told her everything. The bedroom, the stocking, the birthday disparity. The Christmas photos where Lily appeared in 2 out of 14, and Jackson appeared in all of them. The camping trip last fall where Patrick and Vanessa took Jackson to the Smoky Mountains and told Lily she couldn't go because she had a school project. I'd checked with her teacher. There was no project. The Disney booking. The locked bedroom door. The garage. Joe listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said one word. Timeline. I've got one, I said. 18 months of documentation. Dates, photos, recordings. My legal pad had 7 pages. She exhaled. Stephen, why didn't you call me sooner? Because he's my son, and I kept hoping he'd figure it out on his own. That's the worst reason I've ever heard from the smartest judge I know. She was right. I knew she was right. But love makes you stupid, even at 67, even with 34 years of watching other families fall apart and thinking yours never would. We filed the petition for custody on Friday. Emergency temporary custody granted Monday morning by Judge Robert Chen in Wake County District Court, a man I'd never appeared before in any capacity and who owed me nothing. I made sure of that. No favors. This would be clean. While I waited for the hearing, Lily stayed with me. She slept in the guest room, which within 3 days she started calling her room. I bought her new sheets, purple, her favorite color. I took her to Target and told her to pick out whatever she wanted for the walls. She chose a poster of the solar system and a string of fairy lights. She also chose, after 10 minutes of deliberation, a small framed print of a quote that said, "You belong here." She hung it beside the light switch so it would be the first thing she saw every morning. I enrolled her in the elementary school 4 blocks from my house. Walked her there the first day. She held my hand for the first block, dropped it for the second because a group of kids was ahead and she was 10 and had standards, then grabbed it again at the crosswalk. We got into a routine. Breakfast at 7:15. She liked oatmeal with brown sugar and exactly 7 blueberries, which she counted every morning. I liked coffee and toast. We'd eat together at the kitchen table, and she'd tell me about whatever book she was reading, usually something with dragons. One evening, about a week in, she was doing homework at the kitchen table and I was pretending to read a magazine. "Grandpa," she said without looking up, "am I going to have to go back?" I put down the magazine. "What do you want?" She kept writing. "I want to stay here." "Why?" She stopped writing then. Looked at me with those eyes that should not belong to a child. "Because when I wake up here, you're already in the kitchen. And you always say good morning. Like you mean it." She paused. "At Dad's house, nobody said good morning to me. Just Jackson. Good morning, Jackson. Pancakes, Jackson. Daddy loves you, Jackson." I was just there. 34 years on the bench, I kept my face steady, but my hand under the table was gripping the chair hard enough to turn my knuckles white. "You're not just there," I said. "Not here. Not ever." Patrick called the next day. I let Joe handle it. He wanted to meet, wanted to talk, wanted to explain. Joe told him to communicate through counsel. He said he couldn't afford an attorney. I felt something about that. I won't pretend I didn't. He's my son. But I thought about the $6,000 for Disney and the 40-degree garage, and I let the feeling pass. The full custody hearing was 5 weeks later. Wake County District Courthouse. Judge Chen presiding. Patrick showed up without a lawyer. Vanessa stayed home. I noted that. So did Joe. Joe presented 18 months of evidence. She showed the bedroom arrangement. She showed the photo count on the family wall. She showed the stocking situation. She showed receipts for Jackson's birthday party and receipts for Lily's, side by side. One was $1,400. The other was a sheet cake from Harris Teeter for $22 and a pack of candles. She played a voicemail Patrick had left me 2 months earlier. "Dad, I know you think we're not being fair, but Lily's different. She's not Jackson. She doesn't need the same things. She's more independent. She doesn't need the same things." I'd heard that exact phrase, or versions of it, from the stand in my courtroom more times than I could count. It's what people say when they've decided a child doesn't deserve equal love, and they need it to sound reasonable. Joe called Lily's teacher, Mrs. Angela Prescott, as a witness. Mrs. Prescott testified that Lily came to school in unwashed clothes twice in October, that she frequently had no lunch packed, and relied on the school's free lunch program despite her parents' income, that she once told Mrs. Prescott during recess, "My stepmom says I eat too much, so I'm trying to eat less." That one landed in the courtroom like a grenade. Patrick was given the opportunity to speak. He stood up. He was wearing a blazer that didn't fit right. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who had been awake for several weeks. He spoke for 9 minutes. I counted. He said he loved Lily. He said he'd failed her. He said when Danielle died, something broke in him. And when he met Vanessa, he let someone else make decisions he should have been making himself. He said he didn't see it happening until it was too late. He said he was ashamed. He said that word 3 times. Ashamed. He looked at me when he said, "My father was the best judge in this state." Not because he knew the law better than anyone, but because he never stopped seeing the child. Every case, every file, every hearing, he saw the child first. I forgot to do that with my own daughter, and I have to live with that. Judge Chen granted me full custody of Lily Marie Gallagher, effective immediately, with supervised visitation rights for Patrick, pending completion of a parenting evaluation and family therapy. I looked across the courtroom at my son. He was crying, not performing, not auditioning, just crying the way people cry when they finally see clearly and don't like what they see. I didn't feel victory. I felt tired. The way you feel after surgery. Something necessary. Something healing. But the cut still hurts. Vanessa filed for divorce 2 months later. I heard through Patrick's attorney. She took Jackson and moved to Charlotte. Patrick didn't fight her on it. He didn't fight much of anything in those months. He attended every therapy session, completed every evaluation, called Lily every Wednesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. exactly. The first few calls were awkward. Lily held the phone with both hands and said mostly yes and no. But by the 3rd month, I'd hear her laughing in the other room, telling him about her science project, about the dragon book she'd finished, about the boy in her class who could burp the alphabet. One Saturday after the call, she came into the kitchen where I was burning grilled cheese, which is apparently a talent I have. "Grandpa." "Yeah." "Daddy said he's sorry." Again, I flipped the sandwich. "What do you think about that?" She thought about it carefully. The way she thinks about everything. "I think sorry is a word," she said. "But coming to my school play is a sentence." I turned around and looked at her. 10 years old. Her mother's eyes. Her grandmother's stubbornness. And something that was entirely her own. A clarity that most adults never develop. "That's the smartest thing I've heard in 67 years, I said. She grinned. "Smarter than anything from your courtroom?" "Significantly." She took the burned grilled cheese off the spatula and bit into it without complaint. We ate standing up at the counter the way we'd started doing because neither of us liked sitting in the dining room, which we'd silently agreed was too formal for 2 people who were figuring things out together. Lily's school play was in December. She had the lead. Not just a speaking part. The lead. She played a girl who traveled through time to fix things that had gone wrong in history. I was in the front row. Center seat. Phone recording. Tissue in my pocket. Patrick was in the 3rd row. He'd asked if he could come. I said yes. Lily said yes. He arrived 20 minutes early. He stayed for the entire thing. He didn't check his phone once. After the show, Lily found us both in the hallway. She was still in her costume, a lab coat and oversized goggles pushed up on her forehead. She looked at Patrick. "You came." "I came," he said. "And you were incredible." She studied his face for a moment. Then she hugged him. Brief, tight, the kind of hug that says, "I'm not ready to forgive you all the way yet, but this is a start." Patrick looked at me over her head. His eyes were wet. "Thank you," he mouthed. I nodded once. On the drive home, Lily sat in the passenger seat now because she'd recently informed me she was too old for the back, and I decided not to argue because some battles aren't worth fighting. "Grandpa," she said. "Yeah." She was quiet for a moment. Street lights passing over her face. "You know how in my play, the girl goes back in time to fix things?" "Yeah." "I don't think you need to go back in time to fix things. I think you just need one person who shows up." I kept my eyes on the road. Durham scrolling past the windows. Ordinary and golden in the early evening. "That so?" "Yeah," she said. "One person who shows up every time. That fixes most of it." She reached over and put her hand on mine on the steering wheel. Just for a second. Then she pulled it back and looked out the window like nothing had happened. "That was enough. That was everything. If this story meant something to you, If it reminded you of someone you love or someone who showed up for you when nobody else did, hit that subscribe button. It costs nothing and it means the world. We'll see you in the next one.